morning. Great pleasure to be here. Last week I was at IIT Bhubaneswar. This week I'm in Gandhinagar. I don't know where I'm headed next. But coincidental, I'm visiting two IITs in 2 weeks. But it at least tells you that I enjoy going to the young institute and meeting with young people. I want to know how to make this session most useful and interesting for you guys. And lest you think that I have come unprepared and just going to sort of what in Bengal we used to call khaki-baji, just generally gassing around. I have come prepared, so you know that I have come with a presentation. I spent many hours preparing this for you, and I've got two of them, by the way. But I'm not committed that I'm not teaching a curriculum that you have to pass out some exam. Both the subjects I've come prepared with is about innovation. That was a brief given to me by Arnav. And if you don't tell me what your interest is, then I will inflict the presentation on you. If you have some interest in something else, then you can just mention it and try to weave it in. Because I understand you can't just, in the cold, come along and have a Q&A session because you say what I have to ask a question on. And you may inadvertently ask me a question on politics and then we end up having the wrong discussion. So, is there anything that you guys would think I can help you with or talk about and you'd like me to cover? Keep it in the area of innovation, entrepreneurship, rather than something completely Indo-Pakistan relation. Yeah.
Sir, strategy teams of huge companies have a specific role and specific vision. So, how do they develop it?
Strategy teams, how do they develop their vision and scope of work? Okay. Any others? I'll just take a couple and see if I can touch upon those. Yeah.
Market innovation and business model innovation. Which is implemented when and how do you differentiate between the two?
Great. How did you know I come with the answer ready?
Well, it was a talk on innovation, so I guess you agree.
Okay. Okay, great. So maybe we'll just start with that. And I don't want you to feel obliged to go through all the 35 slides or whatever. But I've got some interesting little video clips there which will answer exactly your question. Instead of my talking to it, perhaps. I have been very deeply engaged in the last 6 or 7 years. More focused on how do you create a culture of innovation rather than how do you manage an innovation process. There are lots of books on how to manage an innovation process. Lots of books. The funnel, the stage gate, there's software, you can book it onto Microsoft projects, all that stuff is available. And I really am coming from the position, which I think all of you know, but I would like to mention it in case you don't, that God gave us two brains. Are you all aware of it? Sometimes we all behave as though we have neither. But there is to your brain, a left brain and a right brain. And the left brain is the seat of all analytical thinking, logical thinking. The right brain is the seat of softer things, a feeling of space, design, color. So musicians, poets, historians, they tend to be a bit that way. And it's not that you use one or the other, your brain is going between the two, just that you use both your legs, but one leg may be stronger than the other. And if I have a great regret, we all have regrets when you're my age, you must be having some regrets. It is that in my IIT education, I never had enough of the right brain. It was heavily left brain. And of course, they recruit people also who are inclined that way. So there's a positive cycle of left brain people coming in. By the time I graduated from IIT, I think I was sitting at the left-hand most corner of my left brain. Everything in the world was orderly, possible to convert into an algorithm, and if it didn't stand up to the test of logic, it didn't seem to count for me. And I spent the first 10 years of my career thinking that way. Are you feeling a bit at home? Yes. You recognize what I'm saying? Yes. And then somewhere down that journey, it hit me that but nothing is logical in the world. So by that time I got married, and that's the first lesson you learn in lack of logic. And I won't go through all my experience because I want to get to the subject you asked me to speak about. As I got very much involved with innovation at Tata, I realized that there is an intuitive part about innovation that comes from your right brain, and there is a disciplined part that comes from your left brain. And the culture of an organization with respect to innovation is driven by the right brain. The actual process of managing an innovation is the left brain activity. So I got very interested. You know, in India, we have a National Innovation Council with Sam Pitroda. I'm a member of that. And we have highly left brain discussions on highly right brain subjects. Produce an outcome which has neither brain. Don't tell Sam I said all this, but it is a very difficult challenge to do. So how do you make a whole community or society? Now I'm not going to talk about 1.2 billion people in India, so I'll keep it to small organizations. Because you guys may be heads of a department in 10 years' time, and I thought this might interest you. So can I take this subject as the one to talk to you about? How do you foster? There's no silver bullet, okay? If you think you're going to get 5 steps, then you're using your left brain. So try to, rather than furiously take notes, assuming I say something that is noteworthy, try to participate in the process of thinking. Don't look at what is in my presentation, see what my presentation is a part of. That may be the best value you can get out of the half an hour or thereabouts, because I think you need to be given some time to ask questions. And I'm going to skip some slides, not because they are secret, but I'm respectful of your time. And so I may gloss over some of it. And if I don't finish till the end, don't worry. So I have gone with 3 parts, and I'm going to skip a few slides. I'm going to creating a culture of innovation and what it means. The second is some of the experiences we've had in Tata on tools to shift the mindset. And the third is what we have learned out of that. I've got a full presentation on this part, but I'm going to cover it in only one slide. There are some myths that we have about innovation. The first myth is that it's essential to be first into the market. I've called it FIM. If you read any books on innovation, if you read many of the books about, they'll say you must be the first in the market, and if you don't, you will lose the plot. There's a very competitive world out there. That is not untrue. But merely being first in the market doesn't give you a passport to be successful with innovation. I've got a number of examples which I'm not going to go into. For example, if I ask you who made the first personal computer, you think it's IBM? Come on, I know you guys weren't born at that time, but nonetheless, take a crack at it. Toshiba. Zero. Okay, we can have a number of things, but it's a company called Altair, which nobody remembers now. I've got a picture of Altair. In 1966, long before anybody else, they had made the first computer. It was a do-it-yourself kit. You could buy the various kits. But we don't remember it that way. If I ask you who made the first baby diapers, I know you people aren't interested in that subject yet. You have used it already without your being aware. Can you think of a brand?
Johnson and Johnson.
Sorry?
Johnson and Johnson.
Johnson and Johnson. Somebody will say Procter and Gamble. Somebody will say Pampers. But it's a company that doesn't exist anymore. It's called Chucks. CHUX. And they made it in the 30s. Very often, the first in the market is the first out of the market also. Not always, but very often. Because you need a strange combination of something that's innovative and something that is sustainably innovative. And that distinction is lost. Merely being first doesn't help. So that's the first thing. It is not essential to be first in the market, but it's essential to have a continuously innovative model to be continuing. So I'm not suggesting all of you should be last in the market. That is not the message. Second, that R&D is the measure of innovation. I am sitting in a temple, a bastion of technology here, IIT. But that's not true. There are many kinds of some of the world's largest corporations spend a lot on R&D. Pharma companies, for example. And their output goes up and it declines. Apple spends less than many of the other technology companies on R&D. But they come out with some very terrific products. So it is something more than just R&D, R&D expenditure. And that's where the point about business model innovation comes. The Dabbawalas of Bombay are running a Six Sigma innovative process to deliver meals. It has nothing to do with R&D. And recently, as you know, Harvard and all came and studied our Kumbh Mela. Overnight, if you read this morning's International Herald Tribune, you'll find a very nice article written by an American who visited Allahabad. He says these people can't run existing cities properly in terms of sewage and hygiene and water supply. How the hell do they put up a brand new city for a period of 3 months? With a population of 3-4 million, to anybody 3-4 million looks like and there are 100 million people who come to Kumbh Mela. And we are able to put up a city, temporary tents, perfectly clean water, roads, logistics. And this American has written an article which I commend you to read. Go to the internet and find the article. It's published here, right here. And so there are forms of innovation which you can see in business model and nothing to do with R&D. That's the second point. The third point is that innovation is more difficult in services than in products. That's not true. If you're running a hotel, you're running a software company, you're running an airline, and Tata are much involved in many of these, there is as much scope for innovation there. The fourth myth is that innovation is about big bets. We get carried away by reading biography of Steve Jobs that there's this big idea. And we're all looking for the big idea. And if you hit that big idea, great. But that's not what real life is about. Real life is a lot of small bets. The guys who hit the big ideas, the guys who've been actually following small bets, one of those small bets became very big, unknown to him sometimes. Steve Jobs has said this in one of his commencement day lectures that when he dropped out of college, he had nothing to do, so he learned calligraphy for fun. All of you must have read this. This is very much on the internet. And you know why he learned calligraphy? He just learned it for the heck of it. But when he was designing the font of the Apple many years later, those lessons came back to him and helped him to create. Quite by accident, when I was studying in college, I was staying in the hostel in Calcutta, and I had no transit time between my house and the college anymore. 5 minutes I would reach. And the Jesuit priest who was in my college said, "Son, instead of wasting your time, would you like to teach the slum children?" And I said, okay, because for me, I was only 18 or 19, and to stand in the place where my teachers stood with the chalk and to teach other people was a very nice idea. I became very fond of teaching, completely by accident. And then I wanted to become a teacher. Then somewhere down the line, some economic realities came to my mind. And it's not the economic reality so much as an accident. Hindustan Lever hired me. It's not that I ran away from teaching, but that I was seduced by Hindustan Lever. And then I started a corporate career in life. But I've never given up the idea of teaching. So whenever IIT Gandhinagar or anybody invites me, I come along because it satisfies some part. And I think for that reason, don't think I'm being boastful, I have, figured out how to convert all my experience into teachable lessons. Not everybody does that. So for me, it is satisfying. It's a small innovation, it's a small bet. And so think of innovation not as a huge big bet. And the last one is the myth that process matters more than culture. Lots of books will tell you stage gate, how to take decisions, how to construct a decision tree, how to use the software for it. In my opinion, culture. That's why I wanted to talk to you today about culture. These are some of the realities that really focus on innovation. That people think of innovation. I've stopped people on the road and said, what is the most innovative thing you come across? Apple. Almost certainly they say iPad, Google. But difficult to replicate is another kind of innovation. India's electoral system, you would never call it innovation because we don't want to even consider that the government would have done anything innovative. I said this in Geneva once at a talk. I said, India elects, now here's something you guys don't know as Indians. I'm going to tell you. India elects 3 million legislators. 3 million every 5 years. But it's a continuous process because somebody is dying and somebody else has to pay. The guy in Switzerland said that's half the population of my country. I said very soon we'll be electing 6 million. A Swiss can't even understand. How can you elect 3 million people? But that's the number of people who through adult franchise are elected. At the village panchayat, at the state assembly, and the central. Now here's something else. We elect them through electronic voting machines. United States of America has not accepted that. Very few countries in the world have electronic voting machines. And we elect 3 million people through electronic voting machine, completely illiterate people who don't know how to do all that stuff, who have to be taught how to put their thumb impression. They use electronic voting machines. And on top of that, we transport the electronic voting machines through methods of transport which nobody in the world has ever dreamt of. On the back of an elephant in Assam, on the back of a hippopotamus across the Brahmaputra, on bullock carts, on you name it. It's a hugely innovative process, but it's very difficult to replicate. Just like the Dabbawalas are difficult to replicate. So I want to think of innovation in a very broad sphere and in a broad way. I want to talk a little bit about fixed mindsets and attitude to innovation. Just like you have a left brain and a right brain, there's a fixed mindset and there's a growth mindset. A fixed mindset, people say my abilities are pretty much fixed, I must repeatedly use those. So Sachin Tendulkar says, listen, I've tried everything. I'm a damn good batsman. I better stay on with batting. I don't want to be captain. I want to be opening batsman. I don't want to play 5 down. And I'll do a darn good job of it. And he focuses on that. Nothing wrong with it. I call it a fixed mindset, not to disparage it. Some of the IITs I go to, people say, well, this is the way IITs run. Their mind is fixed. It can't run any other way. And they don't want to, they keep on doing the same thing with slight tweaks here. Then you have something called the growth mindset, where people say, hey, if I don't make a mistake and learn from it, then what the hell am I doing? And so, these are the two mindsets we have, and all of us use both mindsets. There's an expert on this, her name is Carol Dweck, if I pronounce her name right. And I think I'd like you to listen to, she's an expert on the subject, she's written some very fine books. Maybe I'll break the monotony by asking this video to be played. Can you?
Here with a slide, a one-pager there, a graphic of describing what is, I suppose, the foundation of your whole theory in this book, Mindset, which is that there are 2 ways of looking at the world, broadly speaking.
Yes.
One, this notion of things being fixed, and one, a notion of things like intelligence or imagination being malleable and able to be grown. Will you walk us a little bit through this slide and tell us a little bit just about what you mean by fixed and growth mindsets?
Absolutely. Thanks, Eric. Well, in our work with students or athletes or business managers, we find that some people have what I call a fixed mindset. They think their intelligence or talent are just fixed traits. They have a certain amount and that's that. And what we find is that mindset gets in the way of learning because people become so concerned with how much they have, wanting to look smart, not make mistakes. But other people have what I call a growth mindset. They believe that abilities and talents can be cultivated through effort and instruction, so that throughout their lives they can get smarter and more talented. And this is a view that promotes the taking on of challenges, resilience in the face of obstacles. These mindsets really create entire mental worlds for kids and adults. Because in the fixed mindset, challenges and obstacles are threatening to your sense of your ability. Even effort is threatening. In a fixed mindset, kids believe that things should just come naturally if you have abilities. believe that if you need effort at something, you must not be good at it. And we can talk more about that because that is a very, very maladaptive belief. In a growth mindset, you think,
She's a professor, so you can't shut her up, so I'm going to. If you're interested in this, and I think you should be, if you just Google this, you can listen to a lot more in the privacy of your room. But I think it's a very interesting thing when it comes to talking about cultural innovation. I'm going to play you another video now. Since I can't bring Ratan Tata physically here, I have brought a clip of Ratan Tata. What he told us in Tata's about his opinion about innovation. It's only 2 or 3 minutes, so you might be interested to hear this one.
For some reason in India, we all get hung up on structure before we get involved with achievement. And in many cases, I find whenever you try to say something, someone, what about the structure? What about the organization? There is, my concern is innovation will not evolve necessarily because you create a structure. Innovation has to be part of the DNA of that organization, or somehow we have to bring out the creative strengths of our people. You don't need a structure for that. You can have an idea at 2 o'clock in the morning that wakes you out of your sleep. We need to have an environment that when you come into work and say, I had this idea and I believe it deserves some thought, that the company should not put you down. If that, somebody should be able to see the value or not, or say that there's no value, but that there should be a means of not being frustrated with that. And that doesn't mean that.
So I'm cutting that as well, just to give you a flavor. I've worked in 2 great companies, Unilever and Tata. And very often, the whole subject of innovation as has been presented to me and I have participated is, how do you do innovation? Give me 5 simple steps, 10 simple steps. How do I monitor it? 5 simple steps. Give me a software. That's the first time I heard a business leader of some standing who got up and said, it's not about structure and process, it's about creating a culture. And since you are attending this program, as I understand, because you're part of engineering entrepreneurship, I thought this should be of significant interest to you. Because the opportunity for you is brought out by what once a Chinese American told me on his way back to California. But I'll come to the Chinese American moment. You have chaos, you have challenge, you have creativity, communication, channelization. And entrepreneurship and innovation are 2 sides of the same coin. That's my message to you out of this chart. They are the same ingredient. That you're going away into the unknown, you're not terribly sure which way to work. You have to use your left brain and your right brain. Those are the things. And let me tell you about the Chinese American. I was invited to some cocktails with this Californian. And he said he's a venture capitalist. In California, everybody's a venture capitalist. So they all have this activity. And he was just back from Beijing to Bombay, and on from Bombay to back to San Francisco. So I asked him the obvious question. I said, what's the difference between Chinese innovation, entrepreneurship, and Indian innovation? And this is what he told me. I've just tried to convert it into a chart. He said, there are 4 C's you require to be innovative and entrepreneurial. I made it into 5. 1, you must have lots of chaos around you. There must be lots of unsolved problems. Second, that must provide you a challenge. They must be the kind of problem that you relate with. If they are beyond you, then you don't feel challenged. Third, you must have creativity. You must have a bunch of ideas that come to you. The 4th is you must be able to talk about those ideas with somebody. And the 5th is you must have a way to channelize those ideas. If you have all these 5 C's, then you have a lot of entrepreneurship. So I said, okay, what about China compared to India? He said, you want my honest opinion? I'm not saying this to please you or to offend you. China doesn't have so much chaos as you. China is a very orderly place for various reasons of history. You guys don't know how lucky you are, your chaos. Now, most of us crib about the chaos we have. Rightly so, by the way. I'm not in favor of having chaos as a heckle. Second, he said the degree of challenge in China is all for the government to do. I want 20,000 more megawatts of power. The government must go and, eliminate the residences or the houses or the land of a million people, move them out and create a new hydroelectric power station. In India, the challenge is yours. Every community has to solve it because you've almost given up the government to solve it. It's almost a negative sort of a thing. Third, creativity. He says you don't know how incredibly creative Indians are. Because you people are disparaging of your own creativity. You call it jugaad and all sorts of names, which I don't understand, he said. But he says creativity is the ability to provide a solution. It may not be the perfect solution. But you can't keep an Indian down. Even in California, they are bubbling. Fifth, you must have channelization, which means that those energies must be converted into some productive force. And he said, this is where you guys lack. The first four you have. The fifth one, if you guys improve, you can't stop. Indians can't be stopped. Now, most of us would anecdotally accept this. It's probably very, very true. But it required a Chinese American to give me a structure to a thought that has been in my head for some time. And therefore, I compliment you guys for taking on this engineering entrepreneurship. And the first thing I want you to feel really excited about is that engineering, in entrepreneurship and innovation are two sides of the same coin. And this is the market for it. Nowhere else in the world will people even think of doing a heart operation for 50,000 rupees. This is under $1,000. Nowhere in the world will it reach anybody's mind that you can do a cataract operation for 20 rupees. But the challenge in India, sir, nowhere in the world will people believe that you can eliminate plastic polymer waste by using it for road construction. India is the only place where it's been done. Nowhere in the world will they think of building low-cost bridges over rivers. If you go from Goa to say Cochin, there are lots of rivers flowing in. And the government is not building bridges. Of course, it's happened now gradually. So over the years, there was the Sharavati river, there so many rivers that are flowing. And there's a guy who's figured out that he can build a low-cost bridge. It can't take a truck. So people's normal communication can happen. They don't have to go all the way around England and come back again. This changed life in North Canada and South Canada. Is anybody here from North Canada, South Canada? Nobody? If you're from there? Do you live there?
No, actually I stay in Mumbai.
Pardon?
I stay in Mumbai.
You stay in Mumbai, but you probably have some familiarity. So nowhere else in the world will people think of transporting 200,000 hot seeds a day. From the right wife to the right husband. Otherwise there'll be divorce rate in Bombay will go up. If I regularly get beans from somebody else's wife, it won't be very popular. So I think you guys are on to a very good thing. But please remember that what we probably need is a lot more emphasis on the discipline that is required to convert all these ideas. And I want to close to you what it means to shift the mindset. What is it that you want in the organization? Both are strengths. You're not giving up one for the other. You need to keep both. You have a mentality of exploiting something that's already known to exploring something new. A miner who goes to a mine which has already been half exploited has to dig deeper. That's one kind of challenge. But to go into the jungle and look for new sources of coal or iron ore is a different mindset. And you need to move yourself. Many of our organizations, in Tata, we say, we are very good exploiters. We must now shift the mindset to exploring. We are very good engineers. We need to be slightly more architects, where we can think of the totality rather than just the components. We are very disciplined. We have lots of good processes, but we have to become a bit more imaginative. Can you think, when you see a man and a woman with their child on a scooter, does the next thing that comes to your mind is, can I make a four-wheeler for it? That's imagination. As it so happens, Ratan Tata is an architect. From siloed thinking to associated thinking. And some of the IITs, the older ones, and I'm very glad to see that Gandhinagar is not headed in the same direction from whatever I've heard this morning. The mechanical engineering department is mechanical engineering. So long as it moves, it's mechanical engineering. If it stops moving, it becomes civil engineering. If it's got any energy in it, it's electrical engineering. And they don't meet. It's damn tough to get them to even forget about talk to each other to consider the other fellow as relevant. Forget about even talking to each other. They're absolute silos. Go to the government, go to companies. You find a lot of this silo thinking. And from there you have to move into what is it that he and I can do together which is different from. So when Tata is going to take over a company, very often people ask me, why did you take over JLR or a hotel in Boston? And I said, when a Western company makes an acquisition of a company, they go with the mindset of a conqueror. Alexander, Hammurabi. They go there and say, we've taken over, we signed the check. You top guys move out, 20 of you, we are putting in our guys. We'll implement our SAP system, our HR processes, our financial controls, and with the shortest possible time, make it look like any other GE company or IBM company. But when Tatas go, I say, we don't go as conquerors. We go as collaborators. And our attitude and body language in assimilation of the acquisition is, we happen to sign the check. But you guys must be worth something. You run a steel plant for the last 100 years. You run an automotive company which has been an absolute innovator in automotive. What do you do which we can learn from, and what can you learn from us? And so we neither go on the y-axis nor on the x-axis, but find the 45 degrees somewhere. And so there are many influences that the acquired companies have had on our Indian operations. And many influences the Indian operations of the acquired companies. And so that's what I mean by associated. And this is the true challenge for you. I'm going to skip a few slides now, again in interest of time, but I must give you time, and show you one or two tools. I happen to chair in Tata what is called the Tata Group Innovation Forum, which is how do you learn innovation? We don't say teach innovation, by the way. How do people learn innovation? How do you institutionalize it and make it part of the culture? How do you foster it? And how do you evaluate it? As I said, I'm not going to go into all of these, so if you don't mind, I'll skip some of these. But I want to show you these. We have a discussion saying, we Indians are discovers, we don't like to do it. It's part of Indian culture, and somebody will even quote some Ramayana and Mahabharata to show that we are discoverers. I said, that's bullshit. Everywhere in the world they think they are discoverers. We have awards. And I won't talk of the first and the third, because they are pretty much to be. But I'm very proud of the second one. So what did you do? You did not succeed. You want to reward your failure. And every year, a team of guys goes and gets an award from whoever is the chairman so far, for failing, honestly. Now if you fail because you did not do your homework or you had your hand in the till, you don't get a reward. You're fired. But if you fail out of the genuine attempt, that you had the himmat to try it, and you didn't succeed, we say, hey, that's great, we want more of that. That's culturally trying to change people. And in Tata's, if you're in Tata's, getting a reward from the hands of Mr. Ratan Tata is a big deal. So I want to give you two examples. When we were designing the Nano, we wanted to reduce the cost in every possible way without giving up the functionality. So one of the things that was given was, Tata Motors said, can somebody design a door, a outer door panel, composites, so that you can do soft tooling, lower the cost, and produce it cheaper. One of our companies, Tata Auto Components, worked really hard and designed something, but unfortunately it couldn't meet all the parameters. So we went in with the steel door, but it was rewarded, saying a great attempt, well tried. They are still working at it, by the way. It's not that it's over. Second example, we said, what kind of a gearbox shall we have? A transmission system. If you did the traditional gearbox, We have 2 year, 4 year, 10 year. Somebody came with the idea that all this is, there's a CVT, a continuously variable transmission, where you don't have to shift gears, it just automatically shifts in a mechanical way. So he said, why don't we try that? Why has it not been used? It's been used in the truck industry more than the car industry. So somebody took on this challenge of saying, I'm going to adapt this to make it for the first time used in the passenger car. It didn't meet all the requirements of functionality and cost, but we gave it a dare to try over. And therefore, this is just an illustration. The other ones are fairly normal things that happen in many companies, so I don't want to spend time on them. And so, here are the lessons. How should the shift be attempted? I say by inspiring ambitions. Somebody out there has got to make this a virtue. Somebody has got to get up and say, I saw a husband, a wife, and 2 children on a scooter. Can we protect them better? It doesn't guarantee that you're going to be successful. Nothing in the world is guaranteed to be successful. The second is by making teamwork a virtue. When I was in Unilever, we were very proud, and I was part of that system. Saying we just hired the best guys in the world. But they were hugely competitive guys. I was not that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have survived for 31 years. Hugely competitive guys are not usually good team players. Look at the Indian cricket team. They're not necessarily competitive. You look at, in Tata, we pride ourselves. We take very good people, but they are not overtly competitive. So that doesn't mean you're taking second class people, by the way. You put a premium or value to people of respect. Or, when I was in school, we had a Belgian Jesuit who taught us Sanskrit. He taught it so well that after 50 years I still remember something. He said the Indian concept is of Swikriti. Swikriti means my action, what I do. I believe in what I am doing, but I have deep respect for what you do. And I will not interfere with you. You need not interfere with me. Both of us can coexist. So it doesn't matter whether you're a Hindu or a Muslim or a Jain or a Sikh. We can all coexist. It doesn't matter whether I speak Tamil and you speak Bengali. We can coexist. Swikriti is a very old tradition, and that's very, very relevant in the field of innovation. Because you're no smarter than the next guy. And you must have the ability to accept that to make teamwork a virtue. I want to go one little video. That's the nano. All of you have seen that. Or some of you are going to see it tomorrow, I think, when you visit the factory. This answers your question. You asked about the business model innovation. This guy, I don't know if you read this Economist just 3 weeks ago. He says, which is the bigger invention, the iPad or the first guy who invented a modern toilet? How many million lives have been saved due to the hygiene brought by the modern toilet compared to the iPad? Now, if you want, you don't have the discussion, but unfortunately you have media, so you have the discussion. In one way, you say the impact of the commode, the flushing toilet, has been so enormous that, but you don't regard it as an innovation. Every morning, when you finish doing whatever you do, I don't think you say that's the world's greatest innovation. You're probably sitting on the floor with the iPad in your hand. Right? Which is the bigger innovation? The Haber-Bosch process for ammonia-urea synthesis or Google? I would say, had the Haber-Bosch process for ammonia synthesis not happened, and the Nobel Prize won in 1909, there would be no urea, there would be no food in this world. Malthus's theory would have come true. According to me, it's a huge innovation. So innovation also has a lifetime, and people cease to regard these as innovations. So business model innovation is something. We didn't think the Dabawala was an innovation. It required somebody from MIT to come and tell us. In 1966, when I was finishing my college in IIT, 3 things happened at the same time, which caught me completely by surprise. And I remember this, I was very young at that time. Ravi Shankar became friends with the Beatles. You all know that. And because he taught sitar to Rex Harrison, is that his name? The sitar became an international thing, and as you know, when Ravi Shankar died recently, it was an international thing. In the very same year, B.K.S. Iyengar went to California, Los Angeles, and he taught to Hollywood people yoga. Today, yoga is not even seen as an Indian word anymore. It's very normal. It's stylish. The third thing that happened was there was a Burmese gentleman who was the Secretary General of the United Nations. His name was U Thant. And U Thant wanted to invite something which was so exotic into the United Nations. He called M.S. to sing Carnatic music. And M.S. Subbulakshmi, of course, needless to add, was hugely mellifluous voice. And when she sang that Kambodi rag that's become legendary Carnatic music. Now, 3 exports from India happened without a single noise being made. And now they are all recognized as great innovations which have contributed to any other. I'll give you one last example. To say innovation also matters how you see it, with what lens you see it, what pride you take. And we exploded a bomb. If I remember right, it was somewhere in the 70s, 74. Yeah? Was that Pokhran? Pokhran. Indira Gandhi was Prime Minister. Homi Setna was Atomic Energy Chairman. And the United States got very upset by this. And the United States said, we will not give you Cray supercomputer technology, which was considered to be very important in those days, because without supercomputers you could do so many things. What did India do? That's what India always does. She said, we make our own. So they set up something called CDAC. And they developed a supercomputer called Param. To me, that's one of the greatest, like our Thumba rocket launch in 1961, like our Apple launch in 1984 for the satellite technology, broadcasting. This was very, very seminal. And I think it was in the late 70s or early 80s, I've forgotten, that Param supercomputer was launched. And I happened to be in Washington that particular morning. And you know what I saw the headline? Angry India does it again. And it went on to say, the Indians got so angry, they did their own thing, and they now produced a supercomputer which had so many petaflops, etc. And I came back saying to myself, the only way to move this country forward is to make it permanently angry. We should not get angry periodically. And I hope that's what Gandhinagar will do for you. Thank you very much for listening to me.
We have time for a few questions. Anybody?
Good afternoon, sir. This question is regarding strategy and leadership. So I was just wondering, how does a change in leadership in a conglomerate like Tata affect the strategy group or the way it functions? And also, how does this affect the culture of innovation in the group? Because, as you said, you need someone to inspire ambition. So how does this work?
If you're asking me a veiled question with comments on my old boss and my new chairman, I'm not answering it. But to assume that that's not the, please now, that's not the purpose of your question. The change of leadership does affect things in a company, as it should. In a company, in a country, anywhere. But usually, companies like Tata, I would like to believe IITs, have been institutionalized to the point where that change is felt gradually over a period of time. I personally believe that institutionalized institutions, all institutions are not institutionalized, by the way. Congress party is not institutionalized. It's a riyasat. And the riyasat by definition is not institutional. But companies certainly like Tata, Unilever, I hope to believe some government institutions have been institutionalized to the point where change comes in an evolutionary way, not in a revolutionary way. Unless the institution is in trouble, of course, in which case somebody has to act. I hope that answers your question with a specific reference to one chairman and the other chair. You know, the American media, since my good friend Arnav is here, who's lived all his life in America, tends to eulogize the leader, in my view, to a fault. The media, they'll show a guy with dark blue eyes and a square jaw, and they'll say he revolutionized his company, and he did these 5 things. And then young guys like me would read it and say, maybe if I did the same 5 things, I will also revolutionize my department. I ended up getting fired. Because he's done his 5 things in a particular context, and I was too young to understand at that young. The accent on the one man's leadership is very high in the Western world, certainly in America, England. And I don't think that's the reality. So you have a situation where A.G. Lafley takes over chairmanship of Procter & Gamble, does a fantastic job. In 10 years, the market capitalization of Procter & Gamble went up X times. He happily retired, had a farewell function and wrote a book with Ramchandra called Innovation, something on innovation. But while he was writing the book, Procter & Gamble went this way. And Bob McDonald today is defending the turf. Does it mean that Bob McDonald is an idiot and Lafley was God? No. But the media have made out that it's one man's effort. But a lot of other things happened. Tesco, who was a joint venture partner of Tata. Terry Leahy became the chairman. 14 years he was the chairman and the value of Tesco increased enormously. He happily retired, took his farewell function, then he wrote a book about Tesco. And unfortunately, his successor is now facing it. Tesco is right down there. One of the lessons is if you run a company successfully, don't write your book immediately. What else? Nothing else.
A connected question. There was a statement that Tata made about British officers in Jaguar, England, not willing to stay after 5 o'clock and things like that. How do you handle that side of your businesses when you have a different type of culture, especially in Europe, where people's personal time and family time becomes very critical, and we Indians we swap 24 hours. So how do you handle that?
Firstly, I just want to put on his behalf the factual position. What he apparently stated was that when we took over Jaguar Land Rover, we felt the company was in a crisis, and this required us to work 2 times, 3 times as hard. We were a bit taken aback that people separated their weekend and so on. And so we had to confront this and deal with it. So he was not saying all British managers are lazy as some of the media have reported. So this is just for clarification. It is true that the sense of what is work-life balance changes as we go around the world. The French are probably, it's life, a little bit of work balance. The Americans are probably very much more aggressive in work. The fact of the matter is that when you take on a new company, there is a number of challenges like the work-life balance. And you take your time to ensure, that's what we did, that your observation is based on a particular frame of reference. If they have been used, like you were telling me earlier this morning, if I have come from Unilever and Tata, that's my benchmark. And so if somebody does something like Unilever and Tata, I feel very comfortable. And if I see something done like GE or IBM, I say, hey, that looks fun. In the same way, if that's the way they have been doing things, go home at 4 o'clock or whatever, they would have said, well, we'll carry on until a different message is given. Frankly, we just found a nice way to get across the message that we need people to pull together. The message went quickly. Unfortunately, 1 or 2 heads had to roll. They're not stupid people, they're damn good people. But generally, human beings do respond to.
Other questions?
I don't know whether I'm correct or not, but so we generally believe that as a company grows, it finds it more challenging to remain innovative. What's your experience?
Well, that is true. Any institution. Because what happens in any institution, company, university, etc., is that the very things that made you innovative in the first place have now got settled. And you have to live and maintain and fuel that reputation. So you get very busy with operation. I call it operation. Make sure you got curriculum, make sure you got students, make sure they are placed, make sure you have industry link to do whatever. And you start to set up complex systems that become complex over a period of time. And you have to work very hard to maintain a sense of innovation. And I've tried to share with you that rather than retrain people in methods of innovation, we are trying, and I don't want to give you the impression we are exemplars in this. We are trying to affect a culture of innovation so that, and time will tell.
Before we close, I'll ask Sudeep to give a vote of thanks.
Friends, we have had many inspiring visitors, and today Mr. Gopalakrishnan is one of them, and we are very happy that he could come and spend some time with us. What is more important is that we hope he will come back again. We have had some preliminary conversation with him, and I'm counting on his coming back again. Finally, towards the end, last message that I think that slide that he was showing, or the statement that he made, that Indians need a little bit of kick to get going. I think that is very true of IITians too. And I hope we IIT Gandhinagar Walas can be a little bit different, where we can do things without being kicked. I don't think it is a good thing to be kicked in order to be innovative. And I think that is what our DNA should be. Our DNA should be different. What I have often said is the faculty and the students of IIT Gandhinagar should have a different DNA than other IITs. And I'm hoping that one of the things that we will learn from people like him is that we would do things without having to have a crisis, without having to be in trouble. Spotted. That is, I think, very important.
If I may, with your permission, just correct. I didn't say Indians need to be kicked. Neither did I say IIT Gandhi. I do want to clarify because I think there's a point in what you say, but I just want to put it into my context. That there is something called dissatisfaction, but there is something called constructive dissatisfaction, and there is something called destructive dissatisfaction. Some of the things you see happening in Delhi are destructive, but there is no alternative. A constructive dissatisfaction, which you loosely call is very valuable. And I hope everything else you said I endorse. Be constructively dissatisfied, whatever you do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.